Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining me. Now today I'm doing 10 cards 1 kit with the My Monthly Hero October 2018 card kit by Hero Arts. And so there's lots to do, so we're going to jump in and get started with card number 1. If you missed the unboxing, guys, I'll leave a link at the end to where you can check that out. Kits are still available in case you're interested also, and I'll leave links in the description area. We're going to start off by doing some stamping. So I grabbed a piece of white cardstock and my stamp platform. We're going to take the large Christmas tree. We're going to place that on our cardstock along with the little boy in the sled, the deer, and also the 2 little doves that came in the stamp set. We're going to ink up our images with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. It's a Copic friendly ink. And so for all my images today I actually used my Memento ink. Now I left the coloring out because it was time consuming, and I also left the die cutting out of the images, but this kit does come with coordinating dies, and so using those I cut it out. Now with this tree here, there is 2 separate dies. You have an outline frame and then you have the layering inside portion, and it's so neat because the layering die creates really pretty dimension for this tree here. You just flip up the leaves and they lift up beautifully, and anything that's put underneath there will show through. So we're going to set everything aside, and now we're going to work on our background. I want to create 3 snowbanks, so using my Lawn Fawn stitched border dies here, I'm going to cut out 3 snowbanks that are different wavies. Once those are cut out, I'm also cutting out a strip of the silver cardstock that came with this month's kit, and I used a stitched banner die to cut out a banner with that same silver glitter. I'm just going to go ahead and do some layering. So first we're going to take the first snowbank and add that to the glitter cardstock, and then we'll go ahead and add our second snowbank right below it. The third one we're going to actually pop up with some foam tape, so we're not going to adhere that just yet. I'm just figuring out my placement, and then I want to create a panel with this, so I'm going to grab a stitched rectangle die and cut out the top portion of this panel. I'm just going to run that through my die cut machine so I have stitching around the edges, and I'm going to do the same thing but to the lower snowbank. Once that's cut out, I have stitch lines all the way around my panel, and I really like that. So I'm going to grab some 3M foam tape. We're going to add a little dimension to our last snowbank, place that towards the bottom. Lovely. Okay, I already stamped the sentiment. It says, "Oh, what fun," and I used that same stitched banner die to stamp that on, and I just used some VersaFine Onyx Black ink for my sentiment. This is going to go on an A2 size card base right in the center. It's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and then I'm just going to offset my sentiment on my glitter cardstock banner, and then we're going to glue them together and place them on the bottom snowbank there. Okay, I'm going to use my Nuvo DELUXE adhesive, add a line right down the middle and then also along the edge of my tree. That way I can keep those tree limbs all nice and fluffy. We're going to place that to the right of our card. And then for my deer and also my doves and my little snow sled here, I popped up with some foam tape just to give it a little bit of dimension. And I actually tucked the little sled underneath one of the tree limbs to give it a little bit of a nice little accent. Once all my images are placed on my card, I wanted to use this iridescent watercolor ink. So I just grabbed an acrylic block, placed a little bit of ink on it, and then I'm going to use my paintbrush and add some sparkle to my snowbanks and also to my tree. Now, if you've seen my unboxing, I compared it to a Wink of Stella or an Aqua Shimmer pen, but this is way more concentrated. This iridescent watercolor ink is super duper shiny. I'd say like 2 times as shiny as your Wink of Stella. So it adds tons of sparkle. But that finishes off card number 1. Now for card number 2, we're going to do a little bit more stamping. So for this card, I'm going to grab the little girl that's on the ice skates with the scarf kind of flowing in the wind. We're going to grab the little bench. and then the little lamp post, and also the little mistletoe cluster there. Again, I'm going to use my Memento Tuxedo Black ink up on my images. Now I did color again all my images. Believe it or not, small images like this take a little bit of time to color. I just stamped a whole bunch out and colored them all at once. So there's my images, and then next I'm going to give you a close-up, but I did cut out a panel that's going to leave me about a 1/2 inch around my card base. With that panel, I'm going to take the little ice patch that's in the stamp set, and we're going to stamp that towards the bottom. And then for my sentiment, we're going to be doing some heat embossing, so I grabbed my anti-static powder tool and then some Versamark ink, and I'm going to stamp Merry Christmas at the very top center. And then in the stamp set, there's 2 snowflakes. I grabbed those, and we're going to have a little snowflake background. So I'm going to stamp both of those snowflakes all over the background of this panel. I'm going to take some white embossing powder and go over my sentiment and my snowflakes. And then using my heat gun, we're going to go ahead and melt our background. Okay. Now that's all melted, I'm going to take a piece of masking tape, and then post-it tape actually, not masking tape, but I covered up my ice bank, and we're going to do a little ink blending with some Distress Oxide ink. This is Tumbled Glass, and I'm just slightly shading the background, making my sentiments and my snowflakes kind of pop a little bit. I'm going to grab my water sprayer here and add a little bit of water droplets. We're going to dab off the excess, and then we're going to go ahead and peel away our masking tape. I keep calling it masking tape, my goodness, our posty tape. Now I want to add a little bit of shading to my little ice patch, so I'm going to use my Copic markers for that. I used a C1, which is the gray here, and then add a little bit of blue. I'm going to go on with B01 just to give this a little bit of shading. Okay, we're going to add some foam tape behind our panel and then place that on an A2 size card base, and we're going to just arrange our little scene. And I did add dimensional adhesive behind everything but the lamppost. And then using a little mini blending tool, I added a little bit of a yellow halo behind the lamppost, as if my light was kind of shining a little bright. Now I add the mistletoe to the bottom of my lamppost. We live in a real small town. At Christmas time, there's some beautiful wreaths on our lampposts. We have lampposts downtown that look like that, and so we have real pretty wreaths, and that's I like that look with the red bow and the greenery on the lamppost. So I added my mistletoe to my lamppost. Now I did go in with some Nuvo Simply White drops and added some little snowfall in my background, and then I'm going to add some glossy accents to my ice patch, to my little girl skates, and then the window of my lamppost. And then that completes card number 2. Now for card number 3, I thought it'd be fun to create a spinner card. So I'm taking a stitched rectangle die and then a large circle die that's larger than the circle that I cut out with the glitter cardstock there. I'm going to cut out one panel here, and then I'm also going to use that same circle and cut out a window inside the front of my card base. And you can see here I already colored in and die cut out my little girl here. I colored her the same exact for my spinner card today. My frame's going to go right in the center perfectly. Now we're going to assemble our little spinner. So we're going to pop up our little girl with some foam squares. Excuse me, foam squares here. No. Okay. Once she's adhered, I'm going to use some score tape, and I'm going to use quite a bit of it. I covered this entire back panel. I wanted to use a strong tape, and so I just going to remove the release paper, and then we're going to sandwich a string right in between the 2 circles. The string that I'm using is silver embroidery floss. I thought it went well with the glitter cardstock here. Once they're sandwiched together, we're going to press firmly, and our little girl is ready to spin. Okay, I'm going to just use some VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp our sentiment. For this card, I chose sending happy tidings. There we go. Once our sentiment's stamped, we're going to flip our panel over, and I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive. That way our little strings will be tacked down. And then I'm placing it on my panel and then trimming off the excess here. And then I'm going to take some foam tape and cover that entire back panel. This is going to secure my string so it's not going to go anywhere. And it's also going to give me a little bit of dimension. This panel is going to go directly on my card base. Making sure it's centered. We're going to press down real good. Okay, now for a little bit more color, I went through my stash and found some red glitter hearts. I added a few, and then I'm going to accent my little hearts with some silver moon dust. These are Nuvo glitter drops. And then now we get to see how our little spinner works here. All you do is take it and kind of twist it a bit until you don't want it too tight. I'm afraid you'll break your string. But when you open it, she's going to spin beautifully. Nice little fun card. And then there's plenty of room on the inside for your sentiment. That finishes off card number 3. Okay, for card number 4, we're going to make a snowflake card with a little deer. So I grabbed my image and we're going to ink it up with some Memento ink. And I did color him in and cut him out. Next, I'm going to grab some snowflake dies. The snowflake dies that I'm using are from MFT. It's a 3-piece set. And then I'm also going to grab a sentiment that says Peaceful Greetings. These are both from MFT, and I'll leave links in the description area if you guys are interested. I also cut out 2 snowflakes with the silver glitter cardstock, some snowbanks, and then using a Hero Arts Infinity, rounded corner Infinity die, I cut out my panel. That's going to go directly on my card base. I just used the teal colored glitter cardstock that came with the kit. Next, I think it was last month's kit, or maybe it was the kit the month before, but there was a kit with the cocoa cups or the coffee mugs, but it came with the lacquer pen, and it came with some white puff. Not really embossing powder, but if you use it over your lacquer pen, it puffs up almost like a Marvy snow pen, and so I wanted to use that for my snowbank. So both of these items are sold individual by Hero Arts, and I'll leave links below for you, but it creates the most fantastic snow, whipped cream too, but today we're going to make snowbanks. So I just lined the edges with my lacquer pen, added my white fluff. Is it fluff or puff? Fluff. And it just puffs up beautifully with your heat gun. And I did that to both of my little my hillsides here. I think that creates fun dimension. We're going to go ahead and adhere our first bank directly on our card base. And then I did pop up my second one with foam tape for a little bit of dimension. Next, I'm going to remove the release paper off of my dimensional adhesive and add my little deer. And then just using my glue, I'm going to glue down my sentiment directly to my glitter cardstock. Just kind of figuring out my placement here. The P was separate, so I'm going to place that down. Okay. Once that's adhered, we're ready to add our snowflakes. I want the largest one to be on the bottom snowbank there. And then I'm going to layer it with a silver snowflake right on top, just using some glue. And then I'm just going to arrange the rest of my snowflakes around my background. I did pop them up with some foam tape as well. Now for the center of my snowflake, I took some brown jute cord. I doubled it up to tie a bow. And then just using a glue dot, I'm going to adhere that to the center of my snowflake. I want to bring in a little bit more of that brown because of my reindeer to kind of balance everything a little bit better. We'll just trim the tails off of our bow. And then I did take some silver moon dust. These are Nuvo glitter drops, and I'm going to add a few in my little background. Add a little bit more silver sparkle in here. And I did add them to the center of my white snowflakes and also my silver ones too. And that finishes off card number 4. Kind of an easy one. I think that deer was so pretty, and I thought the peaceful greetings went perfectly with it. Okay, moving along to card number 5. I have a panel here, and I'm going to take a snowflake embossing folder. We're going to run that through the die cut machine and emboss it. And that's going to be our background panel. I'm also going to take some silver cardstock, and using one of my Hillside border dies, I'm going to cut out a little silver snowbank for this card. I noticed with the silver cardstock that when you die cut it, sometimes it sticks a little. It does cut beautifully, but it does stick a little bit, so you kind of have to tug on it to release it. Okay, we're just using the tape runner and adhere that to the bottom of our snowflake panel. And then I also stamped and colored in and die cut out the large Christmas tree, the little raccoon that has the little light bulbs all around him. And then I fussy cut out some of the ornaments. We're going to stamp our sentiment on a separate panel here. And for this sentiment, I chose Sending Winter Wishes. I'm going to stamp them with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I'm going to go over them with my silver embossing powder. Here I stuck it side by side, and I don't know what I was thinking because it wouldn't fit on my panel. So I'm going to stack them on top of the sending on top of the winter here. That's going to be on the very top of my panel. Here I'm grabbing my silver embossing powder, and we'll just melt it. Okay, now we're going to arrange our scene. I'm just going to add my panel. I tucked it underneath my glitter snowbank. And then for this tree, I'm going to pop up with some foam tape. I used a 3/4 inch wide strip. I wasn't too worried about those leaves not fluffing. We're going to add that to the left. Add our little raccoon. And again, I'm going to tuck him underneath one of those little pine branches. I just think it gives a nice, neat effect. Go ahead and add our star. And then our little ornaments, we're going to use some glue just to glue down to our tree. Now I want to add a little bit more sparkle, but I didn't do it, add the iridescent watercolor ink to my tree. I just added it to the light bulbs on the raccoon, and then the star, and then my ornaments. I did decide to go in with the little star accents that came with this month's kit. I'm going to grab those and use my glue and stick those down to the Christmas tree. So we got a lot of sparkle going on here. These are really pretty stars. They have flat backs, so they give dimension, but yet they glue down beautifully. We'll just put these away, and then that finishes off. Oh, I did adhere this to an A2 size card base, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And then that finishes off that card. Okay, here I have everything colored in and cut out. This is card number 6. I created a thin frame using my stitch rectangle dies, and I created a thicker frame using the blue glitter cardstock that came in the kit. I just matted them together. You can see here I colored in 2 lampposts, and then the little girl and the little boy, and then I did fussy cut out the little ice patch, and then I created a snowbank with my stitched border dies here. I'm going to go ahead and then glue my snowbank to my frame. I just wanted to space it so that you could see my little ice patch. Once that's glued down, I'll trim off the excess and clean up the excess glue that I had left on my mat. Okay. I went ahead and added some foam tape behind here and then added my ice patch. Now I'm going to glue down just the bottom portion of the first lamppost here. And then for the second one, I'm going to actually add a little bit of glue to the very top and very bottom. Tuck it underneath my ice bank and then glue it to the very top of my frame. This will give it a little bit of stability. Next, we're going to add our little boy and girl. And then I'm going to use the sentiment that says "Let it snow." And I'm going to go ahead and add my frame to a white background panel. Stamp our sentiment with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then I took a thin strip of foam tape and I'm going to place it behind that first lamppost. I did add some foam tape behind the little boy and girl also. Okay. After I have my sentiment stamped, I decided to take the snowflakes, and we're going to stamp 2 smaller ones, just using the same VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then one of the larger ones. And these are such pretty little snowflakes. I know snowflakes aren't black, but I think the detail of them is so pretty, and when they're black you could actually see them, which is nice. Okay, I'm going to grab some Nuvo Simply White jewel drops or crystal drops, add some snow drops to my background scene, and then using my same iridescent watercolor ink, I'm going to add some of this to my little ice patch. And boy, this stuff is so shiny. Oh my goodness. It does add a lot of sparkle. Next, I'm going to grab my card base. I'm going to use my tape runner and add some tape directly on my card base. Should have did this first, but this is going to work out just fine. We're going to add our panel, and that completes card number 6. Card number 7, I created a thick frame with 2 of my stitched rectangle dies. And then I'm going to take that frame and I'm going to run it through my die cut machine and emboss it with a Holly Berry embossing folder. And then I did cut out a small rectangle with some of the silver glitter cardstock. We're going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment that says Happy Tidings on the very bottom portion of, I just used the same panel that I had used to cut out my frame. I figured that was just empty space that nobody would see, so I saved a little bit of cardstock. Next, I'm going to take some red and white baker's twine. We're going to tie just a single bow to the left in the bottom of our sentiment. Just going to trim the tails off. And then you can see I die cut out and colored in the little mistletoe and then 2 of the doves. Well, there's only 2 doves in the stamp set, so both of them. We added some foam tape behind this sentiment panel and then placed that in the center of our glitter cardstock. And I had already adhered my embossed frame to my card base. We're going to go ahead and add some dimensional adhesive behind our doves and our little mistletoe. And we're going to keep this pretty clean and simple, so that finishes off that card. Now for my next card, we're going to create a shaker. So I created a circle frame using the silver cardstock. I'm going to adhere that to the same size outer circle as my frame with acetate. Next, I created a very top tag. I wanted to create like an ornament. So this little piece is from another tag set. I figured it would work perfect. So I just glued it to the very top using the same silver cardstock. Next, we're going to add some foam tape behind our acetate frame here. And then we're going to arrange our little scene. I put 2 snowbanks behind this circle here. And then added a lamppost, and here I am using my blending tool to shade a little bit of a halo behind it. And I'm just using the ink that's on it. I believe it's Squeeze Lemonade. I added my little park bench and then a little bit of my little mistletoe to my lamppost. Now we're going to stamp our sentiment. Our sentiment says "Let it snow." And then I wanted to add a few little dots of glue to my background. This way when I add some shaved ice, the shaved ice is from Stampedis. I'm going to use this to fill in my shaker. It's a real pretty iridescent flakes. And then the glue dots that I left, that shaved ice is going to pick up. That way it's not all falling to the bottom. But I'm just going to adhere my window front on top. And that is our shaker. I'm just making sure that all the flakes are hitting my little glue dots. Now, I was just going to add a silver bow, but it was a little too plain for me, so I went through my dies and I found some pine needle dies, and these will be linked below as well. But I cut out 6 of them, and I'm going to attach them to the very top of my little ornament piece using some glue. I colored them in with 2 shades of green Distress Oxide ink. I used peeled paint and some forest moss. Next, I'm just going to grab my bow. I just had some silver twine in my stash, so I tied it up and placed that with a glue dot on the very top of my ornament, and that finishes off that card. Okay, now we're going to move along to card number 8. For this card, I'm going to use some banner dies. I'm going to create a banner with the silver cardstock here, and then also a thicker banner with the white cardstock. Once those are die cut out, I took some red and white baker's twine and I attached it to the thicker banner here. We're going to add some foam tape right behind here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and adhere our silver banner to the very top of this panel. This panel is going to leave me a slight border around my card base. And I didn't like the way this was looking. I thought maybe the silver banner should have been a little bit longer. So to remedy that, I decided to fishtail the opposite end. And then we're just going to place that in the middle towards the left. This way it's a little bit more balanced for me. Okay. Next, we're going to stamp our sentiment. For this card, I chose Merry Christmas. And again, I'm just using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I'll remove the release paper off of my white banner here. Place that on our panel. And I already colored in, die cut out my images. I grabbed the mistletoe and then the little boy and the girl. Now, if you wanted to remove the little blades off the ice skates to make this a little bit more realistic, I think you could. But I kind of didn't mind it. I think they were so cute. Just place them on that white banner. And then we'll go ahead and tape this down to our card base. And then just for a little bit of sparkle, a little bit more sparkle, we're going to add 3 of the little stars. And I'm just using glue to secure them. And that finishes off card number 9. Now for my final card today, the only image that I think I didn't use was the little puppy and kitty and mouse that are stacked on top of each other. So I colored those in, and then I also cut out the tree. Now this tree, I just used the frame die. I didn't use the layering die. I wasn't too concerned because we're going to glue that directly to our card base. But using one of my stitched banner dies, I cut out a black banner. We're going to stamp our sentiment on here. I'm going to ink up the sentiment that says, "Oh, what fun," with some Versamark ink. And then we're going to add some white embossing powder over the top. And then we're going to go ahead and melt that. Once that's all nice and melted, I was gonna wipe it, but I thought it was still a little bit wet. I better wait until it dries before I wipe the anti-static powder off of there. Okay, I'm gonna grab a piece of white cardstock and we're gonna create a frame. I love my frames, so I'm gonna use the Hero Arts Infinity Rounded Corner Infinity dies. I'm gonna create somewhat of a thicker frame. Next, I'm gonna kind of place where I want my tree. I want it peeking out of my window. So I'm going to kind of temporarily adhere that to the back side of my frame. And this way I can trim off the excess. Then I'll use my tape runner, add some glue behind my tree, and then tape that to my card base. I'll press down and then remove the frame. That way it's positioned perfectly where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and add some foam tape behind my frame. We're going to just remove the release paper and add our frame right in the center. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to grab a piece of foam tape. Since this is going to overlap in my window, I want it to be a little bit more, have a little bit of stability. So I'm going to place the foam tape directly inside that window. And then using my tape runner, I'll adhere the left and right side of my sentiment. Kind of making sure it's straight. We're going to go ahead. Next, we're going to, inside the stamp set, there's a little solid ornament. Now I want to decorate my tree, but I'm going to use some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Now, I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink because the Christmas bulb had a little loopy on it, and I wanted my little mouse to be looking as if he was decorating the tree on the very top. So, I'm just going to stamp this bulb a few times around my tree. And I wanted to tuck it underneath that bottom, but I didn't have enough room. So I thought the outside of it would look just pretty. Now, to decorate my bulbs, we don't want black bulbs. So I wanted to add a little sparkle. So I went through my gems, and I found some clear iridescent ones. I'm just going to add those. They were almost the perfect size as my little bulbs, Christmas bulbs. So I'm going to add one to each of my images there. And then I didn't like that open space with the black on the end of my sentiment. So I grabbed some green and white baker's twine and I just doubled it up around my sentiment and tied a bow. And that finishes off that card. I thought that was super cute. Now we're going to take a look at all 10 cards that I made. Here's my spinner card. I think this kit was super fun and super versatile. I hope this gives you some ideas. The kits are still available if you're interested. And everything that I used, I'll leave links in the description area below for you guys. So, I like scene building, and so this was a perfect kit for that. Love the little snowflakes. But thank you so much for joining me, guys. I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you again real soon.